Dear students, now we are going to concentrate on the next chapter, that is the drugs acting on the cardiovascular system. This topic is quite big, as at present we have finished with the steroid drug acting on the endocrine system. Like that, this chapter is also the quite big chapter. And let us look at the syllabus point which are given. So in antihypertensive or this drug acting on cardiovascular system, we are going to see the antianginals, then we are going to observe the diuretics, then antihypertensive agent, isn't it? So these three are some of the important parts of this chapter. Now, in today's lecture, we are going to focus on the anti-anginal agent, because these agents they are going to show their action on the cardiovascular system, isn't it? So now, anti-anginal drugs. So the drugs which are used in the treatment of angina pectoris, they are called as the anti-anginal agents, isn't it? Okay. So now, especially for treating this angina pectoris, mainly there is role of vasodilators, isn't it? Because unless and until there is a vasodilation is there, we cannot able to meet the oxygen demand of the heart, isn't it? So basically, in the angina pectoris, there is change in the oxygen supply and demand to the cells of the heart, and that may lead to the ischemia. Basically, angina pectoris is the symptom of ischemic heart disease. It is a symptom of ischemic heart. So whenever the ischemia is there, ischemia is reflected in the form of angina. So now let us see. Most coronary artery disease conditions are caused by deposits of atheromas in the intima of large and medium-sized arteries which are serving the heart. The process is characterized by an insidious onset of episodes of cardiac discomfort caused by ischemia from inadequate blood supply to the tissues. So, this angina pectoris is the principal symptom of ischemic heart disease, and it is characterized by severe constricting pain in the chin and in the chest. This pain is also radiating to the arms as well as other parts of the body. So now, what is the principal goal for treating the angina? So the principal goal in the prevention and relief of angina is to limit the oxygen requirement of the heart, so that the amount of blood supplied by the stenosis arteries will become adequate, isn't it? Okay. So now that is the main locus how we can prevent the angina, isn't it? Okay. So let us try to see the process. First we need to understand the process of smooth muscle contraction. Ultimately our aim is the vasodilation, and how that vasodilation could occur, because these blood vessels they are passing through the smooth muscles, and if smooth muscle is going to get contracted, ultimately the capillaries they will also feel the pressure inside, isn't it? So if we try to relax that smooth muscle, definitely the vasodilation will be the result, and that may be the solution for treating the angina pectoris, isn't it? So now this is the smooth muscle, and I have shown over here the biochemical pathway from Wilson and Giswold, isn't it? So now how calcium is responsible for causing the contraction. So now the using the calcium channel, there are various calcium channels are there that we will see afterwards. So this calcium channel allows the entry of this calcium inside the smooth muscle. Now that calcium is going to bind with calmodulin, that is CM. So there is formation of calmodulin and the calcium complex. Now this complex is going to get attached with myosin light chain kinase, and now this myosin light chain kinase is going to get activate. Now then this myosin light chain kinase is going to bind with myosin light chain and then undergoing the process of phosphorylation, and now there is a interaction of myosin and actin is there, and then there is process of contraction is there, isn't it? So this is the overall process of contraction. So if we limit this process of contraction, then the smooth muscle and ultimately the capillaries which are passing through the smooth muscles, they will be going to get relaxed, isn't it? Okay, so what is our target? Our target is, that is I have shown in the red color, that is myosin light chain kinase, isn't it? Okay, so now there is another pathway I have shown over here from the Wilson and Giswold. Some beta agonists, they are coming inside the smooth muscle, then they are going to get attached with the adenyl cyclase. So that is responsible for conversion of ATP to CAMP. And what that CAMP is going to do is that CAMP will going to cause phosphorylation of myosin light chain kinase, which is our target, isn't it? That is going to cause its phosphorylation. So phosphorylation of this myosin light chain kinase will not allow that muscle to contract, isn't it? So that may also lead to the vasodilation, isn't it? So if we are going to observe this process, what we can understand is that if we target the myosin light chain kinase anyhow, isn't it? If you are going to inactivate it, then definitely the vasodilation is the result. So now, how these anti-anginal drug, for example the nitrovasodilator, they will cause the phosphorylation of this myosin light chain kinase, isn't it? Okay, so for treating the angina from ancient time, it was known that from not ancient time but from last century, it was known that the vasodilation can be occur by the release of the endogenous nitrates, isn't it? These nitrates, they are going to cause the vasodilation. Okay, so now how that nitrate works? So this nitrate is going to get combined with guanylate cyclase. Now this guanylate cyclase is going to get activated. Activated guanylate cyclase will allow the conversion of GTP to CGMP. Now this elevated level of CGMP will going to get phosphorylate myosin light chain kinase, and if it is going to get phosphorylated, we know that there is no vasoconstriction. So now this is the central mechanism of action of the nitrovasodilator. So we know that what is our central aim? Our central aim is the vasodilation. How to do this vasodilation? We need to target the myosin light chain kinase. We want its phosphorylation. So now the very good agent is the nitrovasodilators. So these nitrovasodilators, they will cause activation of guanylate cyclase. That activated guanylate cyclase will convert GTP to CGMP, and now this circulating CGMP will convert MLCK to MLCK phosphate, isn't it? So this is the important mechanism of action of nitrovasodilator. Now let us look at the examples in our syllabus. So these nitrovasodilators which are used for treating the angina, so they are the amyl nitrite, nitroglycerin, pentaerythritol tetranitrate, and isosorbide dinitrate. Okay, so now if we see the structure of this individual nitrate, what you can observe is that each of this entity contains ONO2, isn't it? So look at the structure of amyl nitrate. Okay, it contains the 5 carbon atoms and ONO2. So its name is isopentyl nitrite, isn't it? Then the next thing is the nitroglycerin. It is a very good agent for treating the angina pectoris. So whenever the what you can say, the higher attack of the higher episodes of the angina is there, doctor is prescribing the nitroglycerin, which we need to keep under the tongue, sublingual dose. That may cause immediate relief because that is going to cause the redistribution of the coronary blood flow. Therefore nitroglycerin is a very good drug for treating the angina pectoris. Next drug is the isosorbide dinitrate cyclic compound, and the last one is the pentaerythritol. look at the structure of pentyl erythritol, isn't it? Okay, so these are the some of the examples from the nitrate. All the structures are quite simple, isn't it? Okay, now uh, let us see how these agents are going undergoes the metabolism. So after the oral administration, the organic nitrates are metabolized rapidly by liver, kidney, lungs, intestinal mucosa, and vascular tissues. So at these are the sites where the metabolism of this agent it is going to get occur. Buccal absorption reduces the immediate hepatic destruction of the organic nitrate, especially the sublingual tablets, isn't it? Okay. And the last example for treating the angina pectoris in our syllabus is the dipyridamole. Isn't it? Look at the structure of dipyridamole. A pteridine-like moiety is there centrally, and the pteridine moiety is substituted with the uh, piperidine, isn't it? Piperidine on both of the side. Okay, so this dipyridamole is a long-acting vasodilator. Its vasodilating action is selective for coronary system. It is indicated for long-term therapy of chronic angina pectoris. Okay, so these are the drugs that are prescribed in your syllabus, isn't it? So drugs are also its structure is also very simple. Okay, and we need to understand how the process of vasodilation is going to get occur. What is the process of contraction? Unless and until we understand the process of contraction, we cannot able to correlate the mechanism of action of these nitrovasodilator, isn't it? Okay, so we'll again discuss the key points in this chapter in our interaction session.